In this video, I would like to discuss atoms. So here we have Cuthbert the cat. Now he is made up of living cells, as are all living organisms. But there is something that all living and non-living things are made of, something that forms the building blocks of matter, such as Cuthbert's cells. Everything is made up of atoms. Atoms are extremely small. In terms of size, atoms have a radius of around 0.1 nanometers, 1/1000th of a meter. An atom is the smallest piece of an element that can exist. We will discuss elements in a later lesson, but an element is a pure substance made up of one kind of atom. It is estimated that the average living cell contains 100 trillion atoms. What are atoms made of? Atoms are extremely small and are made up of even smaller particles. These basic particles that make up an atom structure are known as protons, neutrons, and electrons. The nucleus forms the middle of the atom, or the big bit in the middle of the atom, and has a radius of 1 × 10⁻14 meters, which is 10,000 times smaller than the width of an atom itself. The nucleus contains protons and neutrons. Protons and neutrons have the same mass, so we say that both have a relative mass of 1. Protons are positively charged, whereas neutrons are neutral, or put another way, they have no charge associated with them. Since the nucleus has protons, the nucleus has an overall positive charge. Electrons have a relative mass 1,840 times lighter than that of a proton. Often electrons are taken as zero mass. Electrons have an overall negative charge, which is the same size as the positive charge of the proton. Electrons are in shells around the nucleus, and they orbit the nucleus. In this example, we have one electron in the outer ring orbiting, but in reality we can have many more. Although electrons are small, they cover a lot of space. The size of the atom is determined by the volume of the electron's orbit. In other words, it's based on the distance from the nucleus to the boundary of the outermost shell of electrons. The space in between is empty. Let's discuss charges within an atom. In this example, we have 3 neutrons, 3 protons in the nucleus, and 3 electrons in the outer shell. Let's focus on the protons and electrons. We have 3 protons with a positive charge and 3 electrons with a negative charge. So here the number of protons matches the number of electrons. And since the negative charge of an electron is the same size as the positive charge of a proton, we can say the charges cancel each other out, essentially balancing out the charge, so the atom is neutral or has no charge. You may ask yourself, what if an atom loses or gains an electron? Will it lose its charge balance? The answer is yes. When atoms lose or gain electrons, the atom loses charge balance. When this occurs, we call this an ion. Ions are electrically charged particles formed when atoms lose or gain electrons. Let's take an example. If we have an atom with 3 protons, but it now has 4 electrons, we can cancel out 3 protons and 3 electrons. However, we have 1 extra electron. We call this a negatively charged ion, which has gained electrons and therefore has more electrons than protons. In this case, a 1- negative ion. If we add another 2 electrons, we would have a 3- negative ion. We can also have positively charged ions, where the atom has lost electrons and therefore has fewer electrons than protons. Let's take an example. Here we have 3 protons and 2 electrons. In this case, we have a 1+ positive ion. Now we have the basics of what an atom is. Let's look at the atomic number and mass number. For us to understand these, we need to define elements. Here we have a periodic table. We will go through this in more detail in a later video, but in summary, it's a table of chemical elements arranged in order of atomic number. Now, an element is a substance made up of one type of atom only, which is represented in each box in the table. This box represents the element nitrogen, and this box represents the element sodium. Each box is called a nuclear symbol, and if you notice, each box has a letter and numbers. The nuclear symbol tells you its atomic number and mass number. Let's focus on nitrogen and sodium to help us understand what these numbers mean and how we can use them to find out more information about the element. The letter represents the element symbol. So the symbol for nitrogen is N and the symbol for sodium is Na. The lower number is called the atomic number, and this represents the total number of protons in the atom, which in this case is 7. So nitrogen has 7 protons in the nucleus. The atomic number is also equal to the number of electrons in an atom, because atoms have the same number of electrons and protons in order to have no overall charge. So the number of electrons in nitrogen is 7. The top number, which in this case is 14, is called the mass number. This is equal to the total number of particles, protons and neutrons in the nucleus. So if we wanted to know how many neutrons nitrogen had, we would take the mass number minus the atomic number, which in this case would be 14 minus 7, which gives us 7. So there are 7 neutrons in nitrogen. Let's look at sodium. Here the total number of neutrons does not match the total number of protons. Sodium has an atomic number of 11, meaning it has 11 protons. Sodium has a mass number of 23, and to find out the number of neutrons in sodium, we would have to do 23 minus 11, which gives us 12 neutrons, even though it has 11 protons. Well, that's all for this video. Hope you found this useful. If you did, please give a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.